For 25 years, Mike's has been making lemonade the hard way. Mike's Hard Lemonade. Hard days deserve a hard lemonade. Mike's is hard, so is prison. Don't drive drunk. Premium malt beverage with flavors. All registered trademarks used under license by Mike's Hard Lemonade Company, Chicago, Illinois.
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. See ebaymotors.com.
Have you heard? Sling TV offers the news you love for less. Hey, wait. You look and sound just like me. I am you. I'm the same news programs on Sling TV for less. You mean you're me, but for less money. A lot less. I'm all the favorite news programs and more on Sling TV starting at just $40 a month. Everything great about me, but for less money? Which makes me greater, don't you think? Get the news you love and more for less. Start saving today. Visit sling.com to see your offer. Sling.
Last year,
It's happened!
they went and took it.
He struck him out looking!
This year,
The Texas Rangers win the World Series!
they're here to run it back.
It's over!
This is Believe in Texas Rangers, hosted by Mitch Ferreldis.
The Rangers were able to slug their way out of Oakland, but injuries loom again. Welcome into this edition of Believe in Texas Rangers. Make sure if you like what you're listening to, you rate 5 stars, you download, you subscribe. Also, you can watch every episode on the Mitch Ferreldis Believe in Texas Rangers YouTube channel in case you want the visual aspect of your podcast. And this one will be particularly different because it'll be the first time this season that we have a guest joining the Believe in Texas Rangers podcast. We're going to have Jake Shapiro with Denver Sports joining us for the second half of this pod. So be sure you stick around for that as well. But we're going to start by recapping the 4 games that happened in Oakland. We're not going to do any previewing of the next series. That's exactly what Jake is for. We're talking about for the Rockies for about 15 minutes with Jake. So we're going to spend about 15 minutes talking about what happened in Oakland. And I tell you what, there must have been something in the water in Oakland, or there must be something that Marcus Semien really loves about playing in Oakland, because man, oh man, did this series belong to Marcus. So before we get into his nitty gritty, the Rangers did take 3 out of 4 against Oakland. So that makes up for the fact that they lost 2 out of 3 the first time that these two teams played. And now the Rangers have 4 wins to Oakland's 3. So you're back ahead of them as far as the head-to-head matchup is concerned, which we've emphasized all season long. It's super important to have the head-to-head matchup. And I tell you what, some of these scores. So game 1 was on Monday. That finished 4-2 in favor of the Rangers. Corey Seager, clutch home run, as we expect Corey Seager to do. A 15-8 onslaught on Tuesday, where Marcus Semien was just a triple shy of the cycle in the second inning. That's how the run distribution was in that one. And then yesterday was the traditional doubleheader. We're taping this on a Thursday. So yesterday, Wednesday, was the traditional doubleheader. They dropped the first one 9-4, but then we were able to bounce back in the second one in a very, very tight 12-11 win. That, if anything, it gave the Rangers quite a confidence boost on offense, because with the 12 plus the 4, so that puts you at 16, plus the 15, that puts you at 31, plus the 4, they scored 35 runs against the A's in a 4-game span. And that has to feel very encouraging, given how inconsistent this offense has been to start the year, that they're able to put together a line like that, especially with the injuries that they're dealing with right now. Not having Josh Young, not having Wyatt Langford in this everyday lineup. I tell you, man, Nathaniel Lowe has been a massive boost since he returned from the injured list. But honestly, this series was all about Marcus Semien. In the 4 games that Semien played against the A's. He hit 500, 10 hits in 20 at-bats. 2 of them were home runs. He drove in 6. He scored 7 times. He had a total of 3 extra base hits. And he also was at the plate 21 times in this series out of the leadoff spot. And he only struck out twice. He was so good in this series. It was vintage Marcus Semien. It was Marcus Semien who was an MVP finalist for 3 of the years that he's been in the league. It was that version of Marcus Semien. It was the Marcus Semien as to why the Rangers signed him in the first place. This is exactly what you could have asked for out of Marcus. What's more impressive is what it does to his overall numbers. So coming into the series, he was hitting just .257. His batting average rose to .286. His on-base percentage at .308 rose to .333. And his slugging percentage at .426 rose to .476. And he's on an awesome start to the month, hitting .364, slashing .378 and .545. This is exactly the breakout that they needed, especially with the way Corey Seager has been struggling to start the year. Having a big Marcus Semien weekend or big Marcus Semien series is exactly what this team needed. And it was really good to see how much he took advantage of what has been a very strong Oakland club to start the year. I mean, don't get me wrong, we bash them all we want, but they're 18-21 to start the year. They are far from the worst team in baseball right now. They are super duper competitive. So it was good to see the Rangers actually strut their stuff against a division opponent. So Marcus Semien was amazing. He's kind of the focal point of this Oakland series. But he wasn't the only major talking point coming out of this. Jack Leiter, he was the 27th man as part of yesterday's doubleheader. He got the start in the second game. So let's take some time to talk about Jack's performance, because it wasn't great, but he didn't get a ton of help either. So in 4 innings, so this is the longest that he's pitched to the major league level, 4 complete innings, gave up 7 hits, 6 runs, 4 of them were earned. There's your hint right there. 3 strikeouts, 2 of the runs that were allowed came on home runs. And look, they're in a situation, and we'll touch on Dane Dunning in a second, but they're in a situation where they're going to need starts from Jack. And I don't know if they're going to be able to necessarily just send him back down to triple. I mean, he was technically the 27th man, so I would think by rule they have to send him back down. I'm not particularly familiar with how the 27th man works. I believe if it's the 27th man, he has to be the one that's sent back down. But if that's not the case, they very much need Jack, because this rotation has been hampered and has been defeated by injuries for the last month and a half. I mean, to put it into perspective, Adam J. Morris, who's with Lone Star Ball, he curated everybody that's on the injured list right now for the Rangers. Max Scherzer, Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, Dane Dunning, Cody Bradford. That's a 5-man rotation right there, by the way. Tyler Mahle is a 6th. Brock Burke, Carson Coleman, Austin Pruitt, Wyatt Langford, Justin Foscue, and Josh Young. That's 12 major league players on the injured list right now. And as I mentioned, 5 of them can make up a single rotation. This team needs successful Jack Leiter outings. And we got flashes of it. That first inning was clean. The second inning, the third inning, and the fourth inning got rough for Jack. But the first inning was a very, clean Jack Leiter inning. And I was listening to his post-game comments with Bally Sports, and he's very humble. He's very aware of the frustration that he feels. He's aware that he could be better, but he emphasizes that as long as the team wins, we're in good shape. And the team had to gut out that win yesterday. They really had to bring out the bats again. As we mentioned, Semien at the top, but it wasn't just him. Like, Nathaniel Lowe is a big part of the offense. Adolis Garcia, when he drives in a run, the Rangers are more likely to win than not. Like, this team is still positioned well in case the pitching doesn't meet up the level of expectation or standard that this team is hopeful for. But they still are going to need Jack Leiter going forward. And that'll just set us up for the injury updates, because Josh Sborz had to exit yesterday's game. And you have to think this can't be good if he's exiting a game on 8 pitches shortly after being activated from the injured list. Look, the last thing they need is another injury, but this perfectly sets you up in Colorado if he needs to go to the injured list again. They called up Owen White, who was not great in his season debut. He allowed 3 runs on 3 hits before recording an out on 9 pitches. So hopefully Owen will get a better opportunity the next go around, because I would imagine that the Rangers will save themselves some time by just putting Dunning on the IL and keeping Jack Leiter on the big league roster, because with Dunning hurt, they're down to 3 starting pitchers with Jon Gray, Andrew Heaney, and now Jack Leiter, if if he's able to hang around. I wonder now how much the World Series run really played into the preparation for this season. Because if you look at the team opposite them, the Arizona Diamondbacks are dealing with a plethora of injuries as well. Their rotation is beat. They started the year without some of their key bullpen arms. A couple of their hitters are injured right now. Like, I wonder if the extra long postseason for the both of them correlated to where we are now. We can't say that for certain, but it is kind of ironic that both of these teams that were in the World Series last year are dealing with a slew of injuries to start this regular season. So Josh Sborz exited the game with the injury on Sunday. We won't know the update until the team gets to Colorado, so that could be today, but that is more likely going to be tomorrow that we get that update. As far as other injuries are concerned, Dane Dunning, as we've teased a few times, he had to be placed on the 15-day injured list. He's dealing with a right rotator cuff strain. No. When it's in the shoulder, you really, really start to worry, especially because it's in the throwing arm. I mean, I'd be shocked if it was his left rotator cuff, but rotator cuffs, anything with the shoulder, you get really, really nervous. And pitcher injuries, they happen more often than not. They happen in the pitcher's throwing arm. Shoulders, man, they're very, very difficult to come back from. I hope this is a less significant injury than I'm assuming it to be, but you never know. 15-day IL, retroactive to May 5th. So the first day he would be eligible would be the 20th of May. So not even until the end of the month. In order to fill that void, in the meantime, as I mentioned, Jack Leiter was called up to be the 27th man. Owen White was called up in order to replace Dane Dunning. That was the corresponding move from that day. And then the Rangers also made a trade. Needed some outfield depth with no Wyatt Langford available, of course. And they acquired an old friend, Robbie Grossman from the Chicago White Sox. And I know Robbie's really happy to be able to put back on the uniform. He's an important part of the World Series run, being a key depth piece for that offense, and had to be called upon, too, when Adolis went down in the World Series and was no longer able to play. And I know that Robbie means a lot to Bruce Bochy, and I know that he's beloved among Rangers fans. I know there was a lot of hubbub from some of those in the Rangers writing community about who they gave up. Anthony Hupi Tuyano Toa. I'm sorry, I completely butchered that. But apparently he's beloved in the minor league circles and a really talented pitching prospect from the gauge that I'm getting based on the reaction. Look, if it means winning another World Series, it doesn't matter where Anthony goes. It really doesn't matter at all. If it means winning another World Series, you'll take that 9 times out of 9. Like, the Cubs giving up Gleyber Torres in order to get Aroldis Chapman to win the World Series back in 2016, they'll make that trade again. Because not just given how long it had been since they won the World Series, but it's to win the World Series. You'll give up Gleyber Torres if it means winning the World Series with a nasty bullpen arm of, at the time, Aroldis Chapman. Like, do that 9 times out of 10. 9 times out of 9, I should say. Another name I suggest keeping an eye on just for, veteran pitcher who's pitched in the major leagues sake. Kyle Barraclough was assigned to the Texas Rangers. He was signed to a minor league deal. He was basically off the street. I don't know how immediate his availability is going to be. I'm sure he's been training this offseason very, very long, trying to get back on a major league roster. And I'm sure if nothing else, he was just brought in to be a depth piece at the minor league level for right now. And should he prove enough, maybe he'll get an opportunity at the big league level. And I mean, the same goes for Johnny Cueto, but Cueto, as far as I know, is still with the Arizona club right now. So it'll be a long time until Johnny makes his way up the minor leagues and maybe even to the major league roster. All right, that's all the updates that we have for right now. So now we're going to transition to the second half of this podcast, which is the interview with Denver sports analyst Jake Shapiro, and then we'll pick it up on the back end of that. So here's our conversation with Jake Shapiro.
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. See ebaymotors.com.
I won't let my active psoriatic arthritis joint symptoms define me.
Emerge as you. Tremfya guselkumab is proven to significantly reduce joint pain, stiffness, and swelling in adults with active psoriatic arthritis. Some patients even reported less fatigue as assessed by survey 1 week prior. Results may vary. Tremfya is taken by injection 6 times a year after 2 starter doses at weeks 0 and 4.
Serious allergic reactions may occur. Tremfya may increase your risk of infections and lower your ability to fight them. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms of infection, including fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough. Tell your doctor if you had a vaccine or plan to.
Emerge as you. Learn more about Tremfya, including important safety information, at tremfya.com or call 1-877-578-3527. See our ad in Food and Wine magazine. For patients prescribed Tremfya, cost support may be available.
You can host the best backyard barbecue when you find a professional on Angie to make your backyard the best around. Connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. Inside to outside, repairs to renovations. Get started on the Angie app or visit Angie.com today. You can do this when you Angie that.
Welcome back, everybody, to this edition of Believe in Texas Rangers. We are chatting on a Wednesday in between the traditional doubleheader that the Rangers have right now in Oakland against the Athletics. But then after that, the Rangers are going to be making their way to the mountainous state of Colorado. And inaugural guest on this season's edition of Believe in Texas Rangers, had to reach out to my guy at Denver Sports. He's one of their lead analysts, covers the Nuggets, the Rockies. He covers basically every team that exists in Denver. He's got it. He's Jake Shapiro joining me here on this edition. Jake, thanks so much for taking the time today, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. A good week to be a Rangers fan. They're getting a tour of the worst teams in baseball. I know the results this afternoon, but oh my God, this is, if you could ever get a week to get fresh as a team, this is the week.
I know, seriously. I want to preface it by, I'm going to paraphrase the tweet that you put out earlier today, that the Rockies are still in the single digits for wins. And can they get to 10 wins before the Phillies, who I believe are on the verge of a 27th win? Could they get to 30? 30,000 feet view. This team is not very good, maybe even worse than last year's terrible season, right?
I don't think there's any doubt that this year is worse than last year, and it's not for the reasons people thought. And I was screaming this from the mountaintops coming into this season. The pitching staff is way worse. Herman Marquez and Antonio Senzatella are still on the roster, but both guys are still recovering from Tommy John surgery. Both of them had some time last year, obviously, before suffering those horrible injuries, and we wish them well. But those guys might not come back this year, and one of them might only come back for a little bit at the end of the season. So your two best pitchers are not pitching at all, basically, this year. Coupled with the fact that Kyle Freeland now has an injury and he's not pitching, and you've replaced the pitchers that have gone via free agency or what you did at the deadline in your bullpen with complete unknown quantities. So there is no pitching staff on this team. It is actually embarrassing. And that's coupled with what was last year, the worst lineup probably in Colorado Rockies history, which they've made zero improvements to. The funny part is a lot of people know that Chris Bryant is the highest paid player in the Rockies, and, you know, he's a star player and he's been fantastic in his career. He's been horrible in Colorado, but he's had a fantastic career. You know, the thing is, 4 of the Rockies' wins have come with Chris, who's been out with them for a month, meaning their record is like 4-10 with Chris and like 4-20 without him. So wow. Chris does make a difference for this team. And he's, you know, I wish I could tell you if he's going to be back during the Rangers series. I bet not, but they've given us no updates on him. And they said it was going to be a day-to-day thing. And it's been 30 days now.
And I know he was kind of the big piece for Colorado to sign him when they did not too long ago. And there's a ton of questioning around the decision to sign Bryant, especially given the Arenado trade not too far before that. Like, what is the reception, I guess you could say, from a fan perspective, given you've got the major success of the Avalanche winning the Cup in 22, the major success of the Nuggets, who are reigning champions right now, the Broncos, as far as, you know, the NFL goes, the NFL's king, they've had their problems. But what is the reception around the Rockies right now, given everything that they've done in the last, like, half decade or so?
The Rockies have always been a number 2 to the Broncos in Denver, with the Nuggets and Avs trailing far behind those 1 and 2. The Rockies are now 4th, and depending on what happens with the Rapids this year, we'll see what happens. It could be 4 and 5 swap places. I've never seen the town more apathetic towards the Colorado Rockies than they are right now. It's actually humiliating to watch this baseball team on a frequent basis. And I think that if this continues, that the Rockies are going to have some serious long-term questions about their viability. Coors Field is a beautiful ballpark. Denver is a city that continues to support the team, whether they are bad or good, because of the ballpark is so beautiful. But you mentioned the thing with Nolan. Nolan was the best player the Rockies have ever had. I know Larry Walker was awesome, but Nolan was the talent. Nolan also signed a long-term extension to be here. And it answered the question that we've had over and over with guys like Carlos Gonzalez, Matt Holliday, and going back of like, oh, well, they'll never sign the deal after their rookie deals and their R years are up. They'll never sign the long-term deal. Nolan agreed to being here. And then all of a sudden the GM and him got in a feud. And they chose the GM over the player. And then the GM walked away anyway. And I know Nolan hasn't been awesome since he's been with the St. Louis Cardinals. He's had like 1 or 2 good years, and they haven't really had much team success. But the things the Rockies got back in that trade were not good, in addition to the $50 million they gave up. And then very oddly, and they knew this, they gave almost the same amount of money to a player that was worse just a year later, which brings up a lot of questions of, if you're trying to get off the contract, why are you spending the money just a year later on a player that we all know is worse? Sure, he's had more team accomplishments in his career, but Chris Bryant has never been the player that Nolan Arenado has been, said for maybe his second season in the big leagues. So, and on top of that, Chris Bryant's greatest asset maybe throughout his career is the fact that he's been so versatile, plays so many positions, is very athletic, and you signed him to play left field and first base? Like, it doesn't, you know, Chris Bryant is the highest paid first baseman in baseball this year. I don't think anyone knows that. And the funny part about it is they said this year, coming into the year, Bud Black goes, it'd be a great year for Chris if he hit 25 home runs. 25 home runs is like the 11th or 12th most for a first baseman in Major League Baseball. It breaks your mind of what the Rockies are doing. And that's why the franchise has become so apathetic, because they may have a plan. I'm not sure that they do or don't, but the plan is unexplainable. The plan does not make sense if there is a plan. So it's just a franchise that has long looked questionable. And now given the fact that everything around it has crumbled and everyone in baseball has gotten smarter while they seemingly have gotten dumber, it makes it really hard to want to go down and cheer them on.
Well, I tell you what, and we're talking with Jake Shapiro with Denver Sports in Denver, one of their lead analysts covering almost every sport that they have there in Denver. You mentioned the plan, and I do want to touch on some of these young guys because I'm very intrigued by Ezekiel Tovar, Brenton Doyle. They obviously got Nolan Jones in the trade with Cleveland, but more so focus on like the guys that they are drafting and developing, like Tovar, Doyle, Hunter Goodman, Michael Toglia. I know he's not been very successful at the big league level, but there's high hopes on him. Do you at least sense that there is progress in terms of what they're trying to build, even if it doesn't seem clear right now?
What did you fail to mention in that statement you just made?
Who drafted them?
A single pitcher.
Okay.
They have no pitching depth in their minor leagues. They have no pitch. They have one pitching prospect, Chase Dollinger, who should be solid. But when they made this core coming up around Nolan Arenado and Charlie Blackmon and DJ LeMahieu, they had pitching prospect after pitching prospect. They had pitching prospects that they got rid of. Tyler Anderson walked away. They had guys like Tyler Chatwood they had to get rid of who were serviceable major league starters. They don't even have serviceable major league pitchers now, nor do they have people in their minors that project to be serviceable major league pitchers. So they are so far behind the eight ball with pitching that it's almost not worth addressing the rest of the roster when it comes to their exciting players. I love Tovar. I think Tovar is a great player. And I really like Brenton Doyle, and he's adding the bat. He's already the best defensive center fielder the Rockies have ever had. He's a really solid player. But the headline at MLB.com yesterday was top of the Rockies lineup led by two youngsters looking to emerge. They haven't emerged yet. They're looking to emerge. So it's not like the Rockies are in a good spot. Nolan Jones, by the way, really good season last year, became one of the top 100 players in baseball and arguably was better on a per game basis than Corbin Carroll, was awesome as a rookie. He has been bad. And the reason he's been bad, and it goes back to last year, is he got very lucky. His BABIP was amazing. Some of the stuff like the hit rates, the swing rates, the chase rates, none of it looked like it was going to be repeatable. And guess what? It wasn't. And he's had a really bad start to the season. So their lineup, they've got some nice young pieces. Nolan Jones is going through a slump right now. I don't think this is the version of Nolan Jones that we're going to see for the rest of the career, nor do I think his rookie year is what we're going to see. I think he's just a really solid player. But what they have coming up, and I like Jones, the kid they just called up. There's a couple kids that I like. There are. But their farm system is in the bottom third of Major League Baseball for a reason. So it's not like this is going to get better. The best hope, if you're a Colorado Rockies fan, is if they're really bad and they win the draft lottery this year, Ethan Holiday is sitting atop the high school prep boards right now. Little brother to Jackson and the son to Matt, who's a Rockies legend. And I was around all the holidays, by the way, in 2017 when Matt was back on the Rockies for that little postseason run. Or 18.
Well, it's funny. So I think you and I must converse so well. We must have some sort of telepathic link, because the first segue into the previous question was perfect. You mentioned pitching, and I do want to talk about a guy that was brought up in the Rockies system, drafted in the first round, Jon Gray, who's been a member of this Rangers team for the past couple of years now. You're already doing the hands over your heart thing. I can tell. You miss Jon Gray, don't you?
So I'm close with Jon too. He's one of the people that I actually kind of mess with as a professional athlete. And I'm around professional athletes all the time. It's just the job. I'm not trying to brag. Yeah. Jon's someone who's a good guy. And I'll tell you a good Jon story just because it's a Rangers podcast. So I'm graduating college. This was 2016, 2017, somewhere in there. And my girlfriend at the time was going to move out of Colorado for a job after she graduated college. And she wanted a Rockies jersey that said Colorado on it, so everyone would know she's from Colorado and just the home connection. She's a big Rockies fan. So she came to me and she's like, which player on the team's jersey should I get? And she's like, I got to get Nolan, right? Or Charlie Blackmon. And I said, why don't you get Jon Gray? She's like, why? I'm like, well, one, no one's going to have a Jon Gray jersey. Two, he's arguably the best pitcher the Rockies have already had at this point in 2017, by the way. This was very early on. And I think he's going to be here for a while. And I like him. He's a nice guy. So this was like a day after a start for Jon. So we're like talking to him in the clubhouse, and I always talk to him for like 20, 30 minutes. You can go check out some of my exclusives on my old podcast. I would just chat with Jon on podcasts. It was so fun. So go up to Jon and we just start talking. He's like, what's new with you? I'm like, oh, my girlfriend's moving, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, why, whatever. I'm like, well, you're not gonna believe this, but I just told her to get a Jon Gray jersey. She's like, what do you mean? Or he goes, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, she went to the team store and got a Jon Gray jersey. He's like, well, they don't make those. And I'm like, well, she custom made Gray 50 on the Rockies. She got it done. And he's like, why would she do that instead of getting a Nolan jersey? And I said, because I told her to. And he's like, you know what? I like that. I'm going to be the biggest star, and like sarcastically, he's like, I'm going to be the biggest star on the team. The fans are going to love me. One by one, I'm going to win them over from Nolan. And I always that just stuck with me because, you know, he was playful. It was cool, but it's a little bit true. Like, I'm going to become the biggest pitching star. And to this day, I realistically think that Jon Gray was the best pitching talent the Rockies have ever had. The couple seasons he put in place were some of the best pitching seasons the Rockies ever had. Herman Marquez, just because he's been here longer, is going to end up being a better career pitcher than Jon. But I loved Jon. I was still so upset that what happened at the 2017 wildcard game, because I just hate that that's his legacy here in Denver. And a lot of criticism got made of Jon throughout the course of 17 and 18 that he was the Rockies ace and he was a mental liability for the roster. And that was never the case that I got. What I saw was Jon Gray struggling with the fact that he had a great fastball, but his out pitch at sea level was different than his out pitch here in Denver. He had to throw a slider in Denver, but a curveball out on the road. He was a completely different pitcher, home and road, and he was starting to figure it out. And the Rockies should have never let him go. They had an opportunity to match anything that was offered to him in free agency that year, and they decided to just let him walk. They didn't even offer him anything, which I just never understood. So I was very happy to see Jon win a World Series last year, because that's a guy who is one of the good ones.
And I think if I did my research correctly, this will be the first he's on line to, I think, have his first pit outing back in Colorado. So I'm sure that's going to mean a lot to him too, going back to the place where he started his career. I've got time for maybe one more. And the biggest one that I want to ask you that has nothing to do with actually the team, but rather the product that people get to see, or I guess don't get to see. So with Texas and with Bally's and Diamond Sports Group, you're very familiar with what's happening with regional sports networks and how everything's going downhill. You guys in Colorado, the Rockies have already begun their individual streaming package distributed by MLB. Texas, they've got at least one more year with Bally's, but they just went dark on Xfinity and Comcast customers. Just if you were to guess, what do you think is the future of RSNs when it comes to covering sports the way that they have the last several years?
I think RSNs are going to go the way of the dodo, unless you've got specific circumstances like the Dodgers, where they are completely bankrolled by the company itself, Time Warner Cable, not actually the RSN. So they literally are underwritten and they can't go insolvent because of their deal. Then you have other cases like where the Cubs fund their own network. The Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox, I know, are trying to fund their own network right now. So you're going to have cases like this, specific use cases, the Yankees with Yes, the Rangers and Knicks with MSG, where it's going to work out. I don't think for teams generally like the Texas Rangers, and Dallas is a way bigger market than Denver, but I just don't think generally teams like the Texas Rangers or the teams here in Colorado, even though half them are owned by a guy who owns the RSN, are really going to find sustainability in the RSN model. I think this is all going to be put under an MLB roof, and they're going to try and split the package up in as many ways as possible, sell it to as many different Amazons, Netflixes, Apples, whatever they can do to sell it. And they're going to try and get as much money off of it, and it's going to become more of a nationalized package. You might be thinking more in terms of the NFL. Unfortunately, probably those games won't be over the bunny ears like you can get with almost every NFL game, but more so like MLS, where it's behind that paywall on Apple TV. You pay one price and you get all the games. I hope it's pay one price, get all the one games on streaming services, but I think it's probably going to be split across a couple. Right now for the Rockies, you can pay. It's basically MLB.TV if anyone has MLB.TV. It's just a Rocky-specific one. So you pay for that and you watch the games. I pay for all of MLB TV TV, so I get all of the games too. You can pay like an extra $20 to get every game in Major League Baseball. So that makes it pretty easy, especially with the Rockies, because they're only on national TV like twice, so I don't really have to worry about it. And then additionally, the thing that's kind of interesting with that is the games are actually back on television, even though it's being streamed. So there's a dedicated channel on a couple of the service providers. I think Comcast and Dish. I don't watch TV that way, but like half them do, half them don't. So they have the MLB TV Rockies channel, and it's like got a 15-minute pregame and a 15-minute postgame. What I will tell you is the broadcast quality has diminished greatly. They've cut a bunch of cameras. They've cut people whose broadcasters you're probably familiar with if you're Rockies fans, hours, and done all sorts of stuff. So it's not going to be as good of a product, but that's kind of what happens when baseball's relying solely on RSN money for 20 years almost, and then they don't see the changes, even though they are the ones selling streaming with BAMTech ahead of absolutely everyone. It makes no sense how baseball was ahead of everyone and also somehow behind everyone.
Jake Shapiro, he's great with Denver Sports. Thanks so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate it.
Of course, buddy. Thank you.
Once again, thanks to Jake with Denver Sports. Really appreciate him coming on. And as far as the next episode, we will be back after the Colorado Rockies series is complete to react to that. Maybe we'll get a chance to talk to somebody with the Cleveland club, talk a little Guardians baseball as they're going to be coming in to the DFW starting on Monday. So we'll talk to you again Sunday night. And until then, believe in Texas Rangers.
I won't let my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis symptoms define me.
Emerge as you. In 2 clinical studies, Tremfya guselkumab, taken by injection, provided 90% clearer skin at 16 weeks in 7 out of 10 adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. In a study, nearly 7 out of 10 patients with 90% clearer skin at 16 weeks were still clearer at 5 years. At 1 year and thereafter, patients and healthcare providers knew that Tremfya was being used. This may have increased results. Results may vary.
Serious allergic reactions may occur. Tremfya may increase your risk of infections and lower your ability to fight them. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms of infection, including fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough. Tell your doctor if you had a vaccine or plan to.
Emerge as you. Learn more about Tremfya, including important safety information at tremfya.com or call 1-877-578-3527. See our ad in Food and Wine magazine. For patients prescribed Tremfya, cost support may be available.
The Angie's List you know and trust is now Angie, and we're so much more than just a list. We still connect you with top local pros and show you ratings and reviews, but now we also let you compare upfront prices on hundreds of projects and book a service instantly. We can even handle the rest of your project from start to finish. So remember, Angie's List is now Angie, and we're here to get your job done right. Get started at Angie.com. That's ANGI, or download the app today.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on his shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding or a belt slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Grainger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.